and gentlemen, welcome to BGF Japan, BGF Japan's conference, BGF Japan G7 Summit Initiative. I'm Nobuemita, the representative of BGF Japan, the member of the executive board of BGF. You brought us the best cherry blossom season. The cherry trees are in full bloom here in Tokyo. My jacket is full bloom too. At the beginning of this year, BGF created G7 Summit Initiative to support the Japanese government. We BGF Japan really appreciate this support. BGF Japan was established 2 years ago. I'm very happy to have such wonderful, great, and prominent intellectuals gathered here today. BGF Japan has 2 goals. First, we would like to promote discussions among several nations by the means of internet. It will be our great pleasure to be a bridge between Japan and the United States, as well as other countries. Our second goal is to improve education in Japan with help of the international scholars. It is BGF Japan's goal to contribute to both Japan and the world as a whole, and also express Japan's strengths. Today, we have with us Mr. Tuan Nguyen from Boston. He is the CEO of BGF and a Harvard Kennedy School Fellow. And he was a successful IT businessman in Vietnam. Please welcome him with a big applause. And I'd like to thank Ms. Noriko Mizuta, the Chancellor of Josai University. Kindly provide us with this wonderful room. Please give her another big applause. We have plenty of time to ask questions for you, young leaders, at the end of this conference. I hope BGF Japan's G7 Summit Initiative will be a fruitful one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for knowing me, see the amazing job for Boston Global Forum in Japan, and bring a lot of things of Japan and a bridge between Boston Global Forum and Japan. Everything successful in Japan, see great contribution. Today, also thank you so much for your great contribution for Boston Global Forum for a long time so far, and special our very honored professor, honored ambassadors, honored scholars and people here. And, that's the reason why Boston Global Forum often think about Japan and how to support Japan more in Boston area, in Harvard, MIT, and Boston community. So this year we have initiated the Boston Global Forum G7 Summit initiative. We focus on cybersecurity to generate one initiative for G7 Summit. I think this initiative will play a very important role of Japan with the world, with a very important significant issue in 21st century. Boston Global Forum, we are very honored to get support and contribution from top professor at Harvard, as Professor Joseph Nye, Professor Tom Peterson, Professor John Welch, and Larry Summer, and also special with great experts in cybersecurity, Bruce Senior, and leaders in the world after host Manuel Barroso. He is a former Prime Minister Portugal and also long-time 10 years President of European Commission. Now he is a professor at Princeton. And John Savage, top professor in Brown University in cybersecurity, both in policy and in technology. Yeah, so today we are very honored to announce and introduce the first version cybersecurity proposal for 2016 G7 Summit. In this proposal, we will send you and deliver by email. I will briefly because we have only 3 minutes to talk. And that is in the world today in cyber. We need a norm, international norm. And so in this proposal and initiative, Boston Global Forum focused very, very much on build and design and norm in cybersecurity. First, that is the G7 nation should encourage adoption of norms set forth by G20 and United States nation group of government experts GGE and the Boston Global Forum's Ethics Code of Conduct for Cyber Security, ECC. And in the norm, we introduce and advise and suggest G7 Summit should accept and adopt the key G20 norms and key GGE norms by a group of UN and key ECCC norms by Boston Global Forum. We launched last year in Global Cyber Security Day, December 12. And exciting at the time on Global Cyber Security Day, and we announced the Ethics Code of Conduct for Cyber Business Security. We have speaker here and here, also Joy and from Nikkei and Joy and talk with in that Global Cyber Security Day. And after day, we honor Prime Minister Shinzo Abe as a world leader in cybersecurity to recognize his great contribution and leading in cybersecurity and business security in the world. So that's a very important first. And the second thing in proposal that is G7 nation should engage hardware and software vendors in developing cyber norms, following the 6 guidelines in the Microsoft report, International Cybersecurity Norms, reducing conflict in an internet development world. So that is the second thing we suggest. And the third, G7 nation should develop cyber risk reduction measures. And the fourth, the G7 nation should identify, publish, and promote best practice in the cybersecurity area. Such practice would many things. And the fifth, that is G7 nation should support cybersecurity capacity building in developing countries. That is 5 things, important things. We suggest for G7 summit, and today in Tokyo, cherry blossom, very traditional of Japan, great country. We respect very much, and we announce this version And we will continue to develop and write a report, and we will announce at Harvard Faculty Club in a very important conference, May 9. And at the time, we will connect between Harvard Faculty Club to Tokyo also. And in April, we also have series dialogue with topic role Japan in peace, security, and development in the world today. And we hope we can, all of us can join and contribute ideas and the massive knowledge to contribute for Japan and make Japan a very important role in the world for peace and security. And once again, we thank you so much for your great contribution, special Ambassador Ichiro Fujisaki. Yeah, he's a great fan and a great contributor for Boston Global Forum for a long time. And we highly appreciate his vision, knowledge, enthusiasm, and great contribution for us, also for the world, for peace, security, and development in the world. Thank you so much for attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tron and Ms. Mita, for organizing this meeting. I think it's very timely. G7 Foreign Ministers meeting is 2 weeks away. It's going to be held in April 10 and 11 in Hiroshima. And the G7 summit itself, it's going to be in Iseshima in 2 months' time exactly. It's going to be May 26 and 27. So this meeting is very timely, and I hope, as Tron-san said, we can make a meaningful input to that process. Now, G7, we have 2 pillars, political issues and economic issues. Economic issues will be later discussed by Professor Hamada and Professor Sakakibara, so we'll concentrate this first session on political issues. Every year, it looks like G7 address the same issues. And sometimes it's criticized because the communique looks all the same every year. However, there's a reason to it, because it's like a medical or health checkup. A checkup of the system of our market mechanism and also democracy. So we try to address all the same issues and try to see if there's anything wrong. So that is the main reason that we sort of try to address the same issues. That I have to address because some people do not really recognize it. Now, this year, I think that's my hunch, and I may be wrong, but the important issues will be like terrorism, refugee issue, Middle East, and maritime security, cyber issues. Of course, there'll be, maybe that belongs to the economic field, but global health issue, because there's a Zika fever, and people are really so much mindful about global health issue. Now, today, I'd like to first introduce our panelists. First, we have Professor Kubo. He's the professor of Tokyo University, and he is Japan's foremost expert on American political science and American politics. Professor Kubo. Next to Professor Kubo is Ambassador Yanai. Ambassador Yanai has been was Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and then Ambassador to United States, Ambassador to Japan, United States, and he was also chairman of the advisory panel for the reconstruction of the legal basis for security for Prime Minister Abe. And then he is now a judge of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. So Professor and also Ambassador Yanai. Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Vice Admiral, and he's an expert on both maritime security issues and also cybersecurity. He was Japan's top intelligence officer when he was in Japanese Self-Defense Force. Admiral Mr. Komase is an expert on cybersecurity. Everyone knows Mr. Komase because he has written books on that, and he appears often on media for his expertise on cybersecurity. So we're very happy that we have Mr. Komase here. Thank you very much, Mr. Komase. So today, I'd like to start from this end, the right end, Kubo-san. On G7, as I said, we discussed many issues, but our real concern here is how the U.S. politics is developing now. Everyone is watching how it is. So if you can start from there and talk about G7 as well, if you can, please. Yeah, by the way, everyone has 3 minutes each, and we'll come back again.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Fujisaki, and thank you very much, Mita-san, for having me. I'm a very absent-minded person. I didn't know just a few minutes ago that this forum would be conducted in English. So I don't have any prepared statement, even in Japanese, so I try my best. I think terrorism or anti-terrorist measures will be certainly pretty high on agenda at the next summit meeting. Although this issue is somewhat remote, in Japan, but it is a really serious, imminent issue, certainly for France, UK, and for many EU countries. Certainly for Belgium, though Belgium is not a participant directly, but its voice would be represented by EU. And I think many advanced countries are having trouble with these kinds of threats. Certainly, including in the United States, where there were terrorist attacks, even the end of last year, like in November in California. So, and I think there are many American friends recently, my friends, who tend to say that they would like to seek political asylum in Japan in the case of Trump presidency. And of course, I say you're welcome, but Japan took only like 10 or 20 political asylum people, so you have to apply first. This is why I say. But to be serious, so-called Trump phenomena is riding high on some sentiments of kind of certain Americans who has kind of negative feelings with illegal immigrants and Islamic people. And the support rate for Mr. Trump went up when there was a terrorist attack in California in the United States last year. And how to deal with these problems, like immigrants in general or illegal immigrants, and the terrorists. I think these are getting a really serious problem in the United States and in Europe. And I think the task for the elite, the governing elite, or public intellectuals is getting very tough. The elite cannot just talk idealistic things. elite should not look down upon how ordinary people think about terrorism or illegal immigrants or refugees. They have to seriously think about concrete measures to deal with these problems, at the same time as having a persuasive narrative to have some reasonable solutions. Elite, of course, should not resort to emotional rhetoric, which actually Mr. Trump does. And under Trump, and who is challenging political correctness in every sense of the word, even now, the status of the kind of United States is going down, and if he gets elected, soft power of the United States will even going down further. So, in the end, we have to probably talk about the United States, even as a security risk for the current international order or for the region. I think, I have spoken already more than 3 minutes, so I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kubo. When we listen to this candidate, Trump, he says that Japan is free-riding on security issues, and I think it was very right that we have done. Japan has done so. The legislature on collective self-defense, it maybe cannot really preempt these criticism, but still, it was a lot better than if we had not done it. And Ambassador Yarai was the engine for this, so can you talk a little bit about that and how you see Japan-US security relations in the coming years as well, if you can?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fujisaki. Since this year's summit will be held in Japan, I'd like to make a few brief comments on the security situation in East Asia, especially in Northeast Asia first. As we all know, Japan is threatened by terrorists like any other regions. But in this region, in Northeast Asia, in addition to that, I think the threats from states are still very high. The level of the threats is high. It is mainly because North Korea is pursuing its efforts to develop nuclear weapons and also ballistic missiles to deliver nuclear weapons. And also it is China's power projection onto the Pacific Ocean heightens the tension in this region. So against this background, Prime Minister Abe established the advisory panel on reconstruction of the legal basis for security in 2007, and in his second administration, he tasked the advisory panel to continue its study. And the advisory panel issued 2 reports, one in 2008 and another in 2014. In its reports, the advisory panel expressed a view that Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, if interpreted correctly, permits not only the exercise of the right of individual self-defense, but also the exercise of the right of collective self-defense. And it allows Japan's participation in collective security efforts under the United Nations. Therefore, the advisory panel recommended that the Japanese government adopt this less restrictive interpretation of Article 9 and amend relevant laws accordingly. Last year, the Japanese government, the coalition government with the Commonwealth between the LDP and the Commonwealth, adopted this recommendation to some extent, not entirely, but to some extent. And the Japanese government proposed a series of amendments to the existing security-related laws, as many as 10 laws, and enacted one new law concerning international peace activities. But as to the collective self-defense, the Japanese government adopted the recommendation made by the advisory panel partially, in the sense that the government adopted the position that Japan can exercise the right of self-defense, collective self-defense, only when an armed attack occurs on Japan's ally or Japan's friendly nation. Only when such an attack affects Japan's own security. So this is still limited interpretation of the collective self-defense. But I think that even this limited reinterpretation of Article 9 will contribute to the strengthening of Japan-US alliance by enhancing the deterrence against any threat from outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Yanai. Now we'll go on to security issues per se, and Vice Admiral Wata and Mr. Komase is here, and I think they'll talk about maritime security issues and cyber security. When they are talking about this, I'd like you to touch upon these two questions, if possible, as much as you can. One, on maritime security. We always discuss this issue and denounce unilateralism of China. And I think we have to do it again in G7. But the problem is, she doesn't listen. But is there any way, a little bit more efficient way, effective way, what we can really do? Mr. Trump is saying that, hey, let's use trade. I don't know if that's really effective or not, but if you have any ideas on this maritime security. Second, patrol or a joint exercise or whatever. But on cyber security, Mr. Tuan has proposed a norm or common understanding, and I think that's useful, provided that everyone would abide by to that. And difficulties that we cannot see, really identify if someone is breaching it and taking advantage of the fact that there's no. So if you can discuss these 2 points as well, of course you can discuss other issues, I think that'd be useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'd like to, that he focused on China. I'd like to focus on cybersecurity as well as maritime issue. First, I will discuss the recent purpose of the People's Liberation Army reform in China. Sun Tzu stated in his book, The Art of War, the avoid strength and strike weakness. The strength of PLA is both ballistic and cruise missile capability, which have integrated into newly established strategic rocket force under the recent PLA reform. The weakness of Western countries such as the United States and Japan is heavily relying on information systems such as computer and satellite system. Newly established strategic support force of People's Liberation Army would strike weakness by cyber attack in terms of soft skill and by anti-satellite capability in terms of hard skill. Especially the new strategic support force, despite of the name of support, will be a major force to strike Western weakness. So what I would like to say is, no matter how we focus on ethics or the cybersecurity code of conduct, China will consistently prepare to attack our weakness. And second, I'd like to touch upon recent phenomena over the South China Sea. I think before Obama administration will terminate, China wants to establish a strategic triangle consisting of Paracel Island, Sumatra Island, and Scarborough Shoal, in where China create a sanctuary or bastion area for ballistic missile submarine or SSBN. Same as the former Soviet Union made a bastion at Sea-Okhotsk. Chinese latest SSBN, Jing class, and her ballistic missile JA-2, however, cannot reach the continental of the United States from this strategic triangle. So that Jing class submarine have to deploy Pacific Ocean. Recent Scarborough Shoal's preparation of reclamation is strategically very important because China will be able to control Luzon Strait and Bassi Channel between Philippines and Taiwan. Japanese important sea-land communication which import energy from Middle East are laying west of Spratly and Scarborough Shoal and around Natuna Island, where have recently conflicted regarding fishing right between China and Indonesia. Therefore, Japan should concern Chinese activity there. Mr. Fisaki asked me how to stop Chinese unilateral action. I think the best way is establish international community, not only Japan, United States, Australia, and India, but also the island country like Philippines, Vietnam, and recently they have conflict with Indonesia, China, and hundreds of fishing boats included the Malaysian fishing right. So those international maritime power should be integrated each other and then stop that hedge of maritime expansion. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moffat, please.
So let me start talking about the what the cyber attacks these days, and also what kind of activities going on with the ASEAN countries. All of us knows that the number of the cyber attacks in these years is increasing, and the cyber security is no longer a localized issue that only concerns the nation state that it directly affects. Rather, it is an international matter that brings to the forefront security concerns faced by all countries. Since last year, Japan has been facing an ever-increasing and very varying range of the cyber attacks, from attacks on the critical infrastructures to target email attacks, phishing, social engineering to zero-day exploit, and the general public has been exposed to the threat of the illegal money transfer, and malware called ransomwares, which is a type of malware that prevents or limits from accessing their systems. And the cyber attacks in the ASEAN regions have in the past resulted in the higher than global average of damage amount of the organization and the individual alike. With Singapore in 2013 netting the highest loss per individual at 4 times the global average. And since year of the 2009, ASEAN member states and Japan have been holding the ASEAN-Japan Information Security Policy meeting to raise awareness of cybersecurity and information security issues, with a goal of not only protecting critical infrastructure across the regions, but also create a system of sharing information related to the cybersecurity amongst member states. With the rise of the state-sponsored and individual cyber attackers, it is more important now than ever to create a security ecosystem for promoting developing cybersecurity standards across the Eastern Asia regions. And increased tension in the South China Sea and the cyber master flexing by state actors have in turn created a heightened sense of awareness of such needs for the security standard and countermeasures. That's all.
Thank you very much. Now we have gone once, and maybe we'll come back again. We have about 20 minutes. Koba-san, would you like to?
Well,
Yes,
I'm allowed.
and if you can criticize others, that'd be better. No, you're wrong. I think that's more interesting. Please.
Well, I'm not going to fight with any of the panelists, but I thought that I should add some words about the kind of the world outlook of Mr. Trump, which is probably to some extent a reflection of the current inward-looking mood of the American public. And his rhetoric is pretty harsh, tough, like make Mexico pay for the Great War on the border between the United States and Mexico. But if you listen to him carefully, his world outlook is something like a fortress America, symbolized by the Great War, by which he will shut out the inbound flow of illegal immigrants, inbound flow of Islamic people from Islamic regions, and the inbound flow of goods from China and Japan. And probably the United States will entrench itself within this fortress America. It might strike out from time to time if there is a terrorist attack from certain designated places. But I think the basic mentality is kind of containing itself within the fortress. And his rhetoric with China is very tough, but if you listen to him again and again, he rarely talks about China in terms of the human rights violation or in terms of the national security threats. To be fair with Mr. Trump, if you go to his website, it's basically no substance on the website, which is remarkable. But there's only 6 policies, and of the 6 policy categories, there's just one concerning foreign policy, which is China. And but it basically trade, how to shut out the Chinese goods, how to make China pay for something. And but at the last corner, there's some mention on of the South China Sea and the Chinese activities in that area. But my kind of worst nightmare is for him to make a deal with the Chinese leader, Mr. Xi Jinping, with like some trade restriction with sellout on the East China Sea and South China Sea, because he doesn't understand the essence of the national security. To him, world politics or foreign policy is all about making others pay. So economic transaction is essence for his foreign policy view, which is very dangerous. And also, what is very dangerous about him is that he has an enormous amount of self-confidence, and he is not willing to listen to what advisors say. It's like probably former foreign minister Makiko Tanaka, and some of the panelists had a hard time, I guess. And just one more word. I don't think that the probability of Mr. Trump getting elected is particularly high, but at the same time, we cannot totally deny the possibility of him getting elected. At the current matchup, supposed horse race between Hillary Clinton and Trump, Clinton has about 10% lead advantage over Trump. But if you look at the map, state by state map, I think Trump will win in most of the red states, Republican states, mostly like southern states, and he might be kind of threatening to win in some of the Midwest and northeastern industrial states like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, which might threaten Hillary Clinton's candidacy. So this is just a guess, and the more you know American politics, the more the spectacular way you make a mistake, in the case of Mr. Trump. But and this is certainly a reflection of the kind of ordinary people's mood in these days in the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The reason I like BGF is here, I can question Ambassador Yanai, who was my ex-boss. So, not possible elsewhere, but here. Now, two questions to Ambassador Yanai. Professor Kubo talked about American politics and Trump. No matter who is elected, are you concerned that such feeling, what he represents, is now sort of on the surface, and we can see that a certain percentage of Americans are supporting that feeling? If so, how would that affect Japan-US relations, do you think? That's point one. Point two is about what Ota-san said about maritime security issues. He said this way is that the international community would get together and maybe not right away, but continue to pressurize China or some countries who are taking unilateral action. And I think there's going to be arbitration as well. But can you give your thoughts about how this kind of, how do you think about this international community's pressure? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Fujisaki. I thought that Mr. Trump is popular only in the United States, but he is popular at this panel. So I have to say something about him. On the first point you raised, Mr. Fujisaki.
I'm sorry, I was not asking about Trump. I was saying that.
I know.
How do you think about the American general public supporting him?
Yeah, I'm coming to that point. Well, I was going to say that Mr. Trump said that, as you referred to in your introduction, Mr. Fujisaki, he says that Japan is free riding in terms of security. It is true to some extent, in the sense that under Article 5 of the Japan-US Security Treaty, the United States is under the obligation to help Japan when Japan is attacked by a foreign country. Whereas Japan is not obliged to help the United States when the United States is under armed attack from a foreign country. That is true, but it should not be forgotten that Japan offers military bases for the U.S. armed forces. That helps the forward deployment of the United States armed forces in East Asia. So that is a contribution made by Japan under the Japan-US Security Treaty. And also, in addition to that, Japan has been increasing its financial contributions to support the stationing of the U.S. forces in Japan. So I think this aspect has to be stressed, and it is necessary for both the U.S. government and the Japanese government to let the American people know about this. In addition, as I said in my first statement, Japan, after a long time of very restricted interpretation of Article 9, according to which Japan was not allowed to exercise the right of collective self-defense. But as I said, the advisory panel recommended the change of this interpretation, and the Abe administration accepted this recommendation to a certain extent. So I think in that sense, Japan will be able to contribute more to enhance the deterrence offered by the Japan-US Security Treaty. On the second point, there's no good answer to that. But I agree with what Mr. Admiral Ota said. It is necessary for Japan, US, and other nations, and especially Asian nations, to gather their efforts to enhance pressures against China's unilateral action. Of course, the ideal situation would be that China accepts the peaceful settlement of disputes under the Law of the Sea Convention, such as the Law of the Sea Tribunal, or the arbitration, or the International Court of Justice. But unfortunately, China does not seem to be prepared to appear in any international courts. So the only way is to persuade China that if she continues to take unilateral actions, then that would invite very strong reaction from our neighboring countries.
Thank you very much. So there was agreement between Ambassador Yanai and the Vice Admiral that there's no other way than continue to keep pressuring China on this issue now. So I'll move on to cybersecurity with Admiral Ota and then to Komase-san. First to Admiral Ota, you said, citing Sun Tzu, you should attack avoid enemy's strong point and attack weak point, and the weak point for us, including the United States, the Western countries, or with the developed countries, is computerized defense system. Then how should we cope with that? because like the Chinese or Japanese word of muju, spear and shield. If you want to make the best shield, then people will come in, this is the best spear. So how would you try to put the spear into shield? It doesn't go through, or it does it? That's a contradiction. So the word contradiction comes from this muju. And then the point I'm trying to make is that if you try to make a best cybersecurity shield, the other side will try to go through it, and you have to make better one. It's like a defense missile, missile defense or something like that. So it's just continuation all the way, I think. And you cannot go away from computerizing. That's the only. So you have to just make defense shields. Is that what you are suggesting, or how do you try to cope with this issue?
I'd like to say that we heavily stick with exclusive defense policy, and we have to create or develop attacking capability in terms of cybersecurity. So not only a defense, but in a cyber domain, attacking is the best strategy. So we have to think about that. And then also regarding Mr. Trump, I think there are many negative points, but I think the focus on the
I'm
positive
sorry,
point.
before going to that,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you tell us why to foster or to have attacking capability helps us
Yes.
in defense of
Mhm.
cyber?
Mhm.
Why do we need attack capability?
Well, in a cyber warfare, I think if we focus only defend, we cannot win. So we have to develop our attacking capability. And then in order to defend, we have to know how they attack that. So during our capability to attacking capability, we can research and how to attack that.
In a way, in the military, we are defending offensive capability on U.S. side, so it flies, but on cyber we cannot, so we have to develop our own.
Yeah, that's right. And not only a cyber, but also ballistic missile defense.
Yes.
We have a ballistic missile defense capability, but that is not good enough. If they attack a saturated attack, we cannot defend that. So we have to develop attacking capability of the enemy's missile site. So that is why we shouldn't focus on strict of the exclusive defense policy in that sense.
Thank you very much. Komasu-san, I think you suggested that it's necessary to develop standard or norms on cyber. But as I was asking, that is on the premise or understanding that everyone would abide by, would keep the rules, and that could be a confidence building there. But because cyber is, we cannot see it, how can we develop this confidence building? Because if it's missiles or nuclear arsenal, you can count it, so you know. But in this case, it's very difficult to know how much they have developed, how much they have attacked, and there's a lot of attacks every day. So do you think we can really develop confidence building, and can we put something that is effective as standards? Thank you.
So actually, you mentioned that very difficult questions to us, and actually, it's very difficult to, because we cannot see those cyberspace, what's going on, and how we build up those trustness within each countries and stuff. However, through those so-called risk communications, first of all, we share the identified what kind of risks toward the information among two countries and stuff. Then identify the threat and the vulnerabilities, and then sharing everything. And whenever we kind of communicate appropriately, we just start counting this like a translation or this transcending the information is we have achieved like a nice level that each time we evaluate in that way. Then from that way, we can somehow measure, we could measure the kind of trustness between two countries. And if third party try to prevent, they attack those kind of communications and servers and stuff, we start, recognizing, because we study what kind of threat or what kind of, vulnerabilities among our communication and stuff. So eventually, we should learn how to, recognize what was wrong, because this communication is unusual communication, maybe that kind of attack.
So we can identify the sources of attack.
We be trying by sharing doing the research. That means we try to set up so-called honeypot and stuff. That way, we try to identify where those attackers exist in the world, and once we determined or detected those funny transactions, then we start sharing these areas dark side. Of course, this is kind of ideal situation, but we may solve that problem by just exchanging the information.
Thank you very much. I think we had only 2 rounds of discussions, so it's a little too early to draw conclusion, but what we have discussed is 3 points here. One, on what's for US-Japan security relations, there are some voices in the United States who are saying that Japan is not doing its dues. However, it's because of some misinformation, misunderstanding as well. So it's necessary for us to tell to the American public that it's not a free ride. We are doing our homework in a way. Article 6, US bases as well. Host nation support, we are #1 in the world. Also, as for security issues, we have done this collective self-defense, as Ambassador Yanai said. So we have to, and also on trade issues as well. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 70% of US trade deficit was made by Japan. Now it's down to 10%. So there's a great difference in this quarter of century, and that fact is not that well known. So we have to really, as Ambassador said, this is true. Second point on unilateral action by China on maritime issues, I think it's important, as Ota-san said, and Yanai-san underlined. It may be not today, tomorrow, but we have to continue to pressurize the international community together, not 1, 2 countries, but as many countries together, and let them know that this is not accepted. Third, it was on cybersecurity. This is extremely difficult because we cannot identify the sources. It's very difficult to see. However, if important countries try to work together, try to abide by the norms, we can see which countries or which area or which sources are not really cooperating, and try to identify, maybe not exactly, but who are not really functioning normally. Abnormal activities can be identified, as Komase-san said, and we hope that this kind of technology will be developed. So we have not really gone through all the issues, but I think these 3 findings are very useful, and I'd like to thank the 4 panelists. Please applaud. Now we move on to the second part, and it is a dialogue between Professor Hamada, who's the advisor of the Prime Minister Abe on economic policy, and also Professor Sakakibara, who used to be Mr. Yen in the Finance Ministry, and who's also teaching at K University, and has been writing a lot. They're both professors, the leading professors on economic issues, so I don't think I'll try to moderate or summarize. That would be the worst thing that I can do tonight, so I will let the two speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Misaki. And then I will start the discussions. What is taking place in the world economy right now is a major structural change, although it is not that vividly recognized in Japan. I would name it reverse oil shock. You know, we had the oil shock in 1970s when oil prices has been raised very significantly, and we have had supplements from that oil shock. But right now, what is taking place is not only the price of oil, the price of natural resources has plummeted. And take for example, WTI oil price was $93 per barrel in 2014. And 2015, it went down to $48 per barrel. And it is right now about $40. So, you know, oil price right now is about 40% of the average price of the oil in 2014. Same thing could be said about iron and ore. Iron and ore prices in 2014 was around $100 per ton, and right now it's about $46. So it is less than half. So major sort of natural resources prices has gone down, and it has affected the many countries, particularly natural resource exporting countries, Russia, for example, and Brazil. And Russia's, say, growth rate in 2015 is estimated by International Monetary Fund as minus 3.7%. Brazil's growth rate in 2015 was minus 3.8%. And growth rate of South Africa and growth rate of Saudi Arabia has come down quite significantly. So what we are now experiencing is what I have called either reverse oil shock, which has affected the world in a very significant way. Since price decline is, at least in the short run, a plus for importing countries like Japan and the United States. That kind of perception is not really that widespread here, but it will eventually affect importing countries as well. U.S. growth rate has been quite significant, 2.5% last year, and it is expected to goes to 2.6%. However, indicators are such that U.S. economy seems to be slowing down somewhat. There are indicators of U.S. sort of economy, and it has started to go down from November of last year. So that even the importing countries, even the developed countries are now being affected. So I would simply conclude my initial remarks by saying that world economy is in a very serious condition at this moment.
Thank you for inviting me to GE, Boston Global Summit.
Initiative.
I think the world economy is under many reverse shocks, as Professor Sakakibara just mentioned. So it is a reverse of oil shock that threatens supply side of our economy. And also the US is trying to get out of QE, quantitative easing. But it's like the Amaterasu in old story. He came down to get out or not, so Janet Yellen is hesitating to get out. And that create new situation. And Europe and Japan started negative interest policy. That is another shock to business people who never experienced that kind of regime. And China, even though it's growth, long-term growth, I think was remarkable under the Xiaoping, is now having hardware maybe all right, but software is very confusing. Monetary policy, exchange rate policy are not consistent, and doesn't seem they understand the basic mechanism of international finance. In my first remark, I would still say that these shocks are not so terrible as many people might think. Many people, business and also economists, get nervous about that. So the fundamentals of Japan, Governor Kuroda says, are all right, and I agree with that. But perceptions are disturbed by the same. The good part is, of course, the oil shock. We depend on about 94 or 95% of our energy resource abroad. And even MITI cannot freely conduct energy policy because of the threat. Worry that Arab nations may be angry. And now this kind of trauma is off. And it's not, I disagree slightly that it's not just short-term problem. Mr. Nakahara Nobuyuki, who ran once an oil company, said it will still continue for a long time, this oil glut situation. So it is a blessing to the Japanese economy. And exiting QE will give higher value of the dollar, means the lower value of yen. So this is at least temporary. This is temporarily give some tailwind to the Japanese economy. And China is a problem, but the exposure to China in terms of export is less than 3%. So there is no reason that Japanese market go up and down with the Shanghai market. So the situation, we have to be cool and observe that we are not in very difficult situation, but people perceive that those shocks are serious.
Well, the world economy has been supported by two major engines. One is emerging nations, China, India, Russia, and Brazil, and the other are developed countries. Now, those emerging part of the world economy, that engine is now starting to stop. As I said, Russia and Brazil have negative rate of growth, close to -4%, and countries like Saudi Arabia and South Africa is reducing its growth rate quite significantly. So those emerging part of the world economy is now slowing down. Although, developed part of the world is doing fairly well, because at least in the short run, reduction of oil prices and other natural resource prices is plus for those countries. And as I said, U.S. has been growing quite significantly, and as you know, Janet Yellen has raised interest rates December of last year. However, it is quite doubtful that how many times she could raise the interest rate this year. Originally, people were forecasting that she might be able to raise it 4 times. Right now, market consensus is between 1 and 2. So, and at least, this March, she couldn't raise it, and probably, in June, she may not be able to raise it again. So that even U.S., which has been doing very well and which has been raising the interest rate and trying to getting out of QE, is starting to recognize, this serious condition of the world economy. And Janet Yellen is paying some interest in what would happen in the rest of the world. So that this slowing down of the emerging part of the economy is quite, I think it might be quite serious. Among the BRICS countries, only country which is doing fairly well is India. India's growth rate is right now 7.5%. Its growth rate is now higher than the growth rate of China. It used to be the other way around. China has been growing at 10%, 7%, 8%. India was growing 5%, 6%. Now, their growth rate has been reversed, and this situation would probably continue. China's growth rate would continue to go down slowly to 3 to 4% in 2050. While Indian sort of relatively high growth rate of about 7% might continue, for another 2 or 3 decades. The reasons why I'm saying that is that Indian population is growing quite dramatically. Although Chinese population is now hitting the peak and starting to come down. And in 2050, Chinese population will be less than 1.3 billion, and Indian population is forecasted to be around 1.7 billion. So I think 10 years from now, India's population would exceed that of Chinese population. And that difference would, as I said, would widen toward 2050. So, and another thing about the Indian population is quite young. More than 50% of the population is under the age of 25 years old. So this population increase is increase of young people, young working force. So that will probably support a fairly high growth rate of Indian economy. Well, I will stop here.
I emphasize the benefit of the oil grant to Japan, but the world is closed. And like the poem by Kaneko Misuzu, who lady poet, who described the big harvest of fishes on the shore. People are rejoicing in the harvest, but under the sea, there are funeral march going on. So in order to talk about only energy security of Japan, oil grant is the best gift from heaven. And it may continue for a long time, but at the same time, many other parts of the world is sometimes suffering, and the total economy goes as a composite, or demand and supply clears out. So on this, on his remark this time, I completely agree with him.
Yeah, this session is supposed to be on world economy, but I think this oil glut, this reduction of oil prices and reduction of natural resource prices are one of the major reasons for creating turbulence in other countries. And there are some turbulence taking place there. And one of the reasons for that is the loss of revenue of countries like Saudi Arabia and some oil exporting countries. And this is, as Mr. Hamad said, is going to continue for some time to come. And this continuation of oil glut, continuation of sort of price decline, dramatic price decline of natural resources would continue to have some negative political sort of impacts on major parts of the world, and particularly in Arab countries.
I'd like to add a short explanation about the effect of the negative interest on deposits to the Bank of Japan. It's working rather normally, transmitting to the structure of market interest rates. The interest structure are going down gradually following, though careful, some new policy of Mr. Kuroda. However, people, including the market participants, are not accustomed to that kind of negative one. So that is creating confusion, sometimes nervous, extra nervousness. And the reason why the yen did not follow the path that is lower rate of interest in Japan would trigger, that is cheaper yen, was that US has its own policy, and Janet Yellen is hesitating to get out for various reasons. Expectation for exit is not so swift.
Yeah, this negative interest policy, which was taken by Mr. Kuroda in Japan, was first initiated by the European countries. And this negative interest policy or reduction of the interest rates, a dramatic reduction of the interest rates during the course of the last 10, 15 years. Economists like Kazuo Mizuno says it is an indication of the end of the capitalistic system. That is, the level of the profits has come down quite dramatically, and reflecting low level of the profits, interest rate has come down, right? And there are no more frontiers. There are no more lucrative investment opportunities. And we have cultivated every aspect of geographically the world. There's no frontiers anymore. Africa is not a frontier. Asia is not a frontier anymore. And in industrial sort of sectors, there's nothing like industrial revolution taking place at this moment. So that every aspect of the seeds for the growth has been cultivated, and now the economy seems to be coming into the age of zero growth. Affluent zero growth is a term which really likes to use all the time. It is true that Japan and Europe and the United States has become quite affluent. Per capita GDP, reaching something like $40,000-$50,000 is very high. So that affluent society like Japan, the US, and Europe, it is quite natural that their growth rate will come down. Not so many people are expecting their income to grow dramatically anymore. So 1% growth rate is quite sufficient for the country like Japan, and 1% growth rate for Europe is quite sufficient. US is a little different. US does have an aspect of developing countries all the time. It's a sort of an immigrant society. And US is able to grow at 2%, 2.5%, which is different from the growth rate of Europe and Japan. But I would say that, developed countries has matured, and, this low growth rate, low inflation rate has come down as well, as well as the growth rate. Low growth rate, low inflation rate is the result of the maturity of the economy, nothing to complain about. Abe-san is now saying that growth strategy is necessary, is the major policy of their government. I don't necessarily agree with him. We don't need any growth policies. We need maturity policies, and we should be content with 1% growth rate of the economy. You may not disagree. You may not agree with me.
I agree that our population will be stagnant or even negative. So in that case, we can have a smaller country but could enjoy higher living standard. But the problem is the transition. We have, if suddenly our population is halved, then we can enjoy twice as rich wealth per capita. But in the transition, and of course some additional effect of longevity, we have to support more old people, and this process of declining population. So it's positive growth and declining population is not necessary thing in general, but that's a problem. I feel that the Trump phenomenon shows that the US is still primitive cowboy country. Actually, a part of US culture is like that, and very advanced science, also Wall Street culture, and so forth. Before finishing my talk, I'd like to tell you that I tried to lecture game theory to Sheila Smith, I think, of Foreign Council on Foreign Relations. And she was right that nobody in this political circle understands game theory, so don't talk about that kind of thing. But we have to have like Son Shi, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but we need strategies, and even though he didn't use game theory, Akiko Okazaki called, we need strategic analysis. That means we cannot just plan by our principle or by our wishful thinking how to behave in interdependent economy. And we have to assume that they are also playing for their own benefits. And in that case, I think we need to make the environment of mutual cooperation between U.S. and Japan, and even I was raised under Maruyama Masao type of education. Still, I think the collective securities are most important, and also the ninth, that if we see the Chinese or North Korean behaviors, we cannot assume that other countries, as in the constitution, would observe the rule and so forth. But at the same time, there are some other elements in this amendment of constitution movement. Some people would like to get out of democratic control and human rights. And that is, I think, seriously difficult. I agreed with liberal constitution Yale professor Ackerman, Bruce Ackerman on that. And the reason why I think Japan is more peaceful country than China is that we have some civilian control about the way, why we don't need to, probably we shouldn't be worried about that some of Japanese troops go to Vietnam and as Korean troops did in the future. We have to keep the democratic control and particularly individual rights to be protected severely. And that is a gift part of the present constitution.
Well, since he touched on the globalization and the constitution, I'd like to sort of express my views on those things. You know, globalization is taking place quite dramatically, and it has lights and shadows. And one of the negative aspects of the globalization is the disparity of income and disparity of wealth has severely widened because of the very active interaction between developed countries and developing countries. In our case, between Japan and China. Japanese wage tends to go down, particularly for manual labors, which could be substituted by Chinese workers. So that for the last 20 years, average wage of Japanese workers has come down. And irregular employment has increased quite dramatically. In 1990, percentage of so-called irregular workers was 20%. It is now reaching close to 40%. So that labor conditions and wage conditions in Japan has been deteriorating quite significantly. For so-called regular sort of employees of big corporations, there's no problem. Okay, but for irregular workers, difficulty has increased. So that, this income distribution or disparity of income distribution has become a major political problem, not only in Japan, but in the rest of the world. It's not the growth concern. It's not that the growth should be raised to 3% or 4%. The question is, income distribution. How you sort of collect this income disparity, which is widening all over the world. And that's one thing. And the other topic, which is entirely different, is constitution. And I'm not a rightist, but I think we should change constitution. That constitution was written by Americans within 9 days. It was written by government section of GHQ in 1946. And I'm not saying that because it was written by the Americans it should be changed, but Japan is probably the only country in the developed part of the world which has not changed the constitution at all during the course of last 70 years. Americans have changed, Germans have changed, and other European countries have changed. It's only natural, that times have changed, and there are lots of different situations compared to 1946. So it is only natural that we change the constitution, after 70 years. And of course, the issue is how to change it, and we should really debate that, but it's about time that we start discussing about changing the constitution, including Article 9.
Thank you very much. I think the two pundits have spoken on energy price primary products, commenting so-called reversal shock by Sakakibara-san, and touched upon aging society and the growth or maturity issue, and I think we've touched upon a lot of issues. Talking about aging society, this side is going to be the supported side. This is going to be the supporting side. So the supporting side can ask any questions. The floor is yours. You can ask any question directly to anyone saying, hey, Oto-san, how about this, Kubo-san, whatever, or on economic issues. The floor is yours, so please go ahead and ask. I'm not going to moderate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Sakakibara, or Professor Sakakibara. You talk about the sense of the maturity for the economic policy in Japan, and but regarding also the security policy, is it sustainable with shrinking GDP? Because with the shrinking GDP, you don't have enough budget for military, and you'll be influenced by the other countries' threat by military action. So, for that matter, I'd like to ask your opinion.
Well, first of all, I don't think Japanese GDP would shrink. We will probably continue to have 1% growth rate in the GDP, and which I think is quite sufficient. And besides, Japanese armed forces, self-defense army, I think we should change the constitution to call that army and navy and air force. But, continue to call it self-defense army is okay. But anyway, with regards to the constitution, we should really change the constitution, and it's about time, that we would sort of start to discuss, what would be the content of the constitution that we will sort of establish.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question. Oh, sorry. My name is Yu Maimura. I'm from the University of Tokyo. I'm currently assistant professor at the civil engineering department. My question is for the career diplomats and also maybe Vice Admiral.
There's no career diplomats here.
Oh, with significant experience as career diplomats, I want to try to venture and ask maybe a naive question about the role of China or the need to pressure China. So the reverse critical opinion would be that China is obviously acting logically, rationally from a game theoretic point of view, because they are just playing the game that they perceive as the rules have been made. So I was wondering, I guess as a relatively younger person, my job is probably to dream a little. So is the dream not for China to become an ally, a legitimate ally in the long term? And is that sort of the goal of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the U.S.-Japan alliance in the long term?
Can I start off? I think Ambassador Yanai and Admiral Otto would have maybe different views, but I think the fundamental problem with China today is their manner. We have discussed and concluded TPP. It took 4 years. Japan and US fought teeth to teeth. It's a very hard negotiations. However, we came to agreement. The way China comes up with the idea, and security issues, it's as we have discussed on Sites China Sea, on economic issues, we have seen OBOR, the One Belt One Road, or AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. It's like that. Hey, I have an idea. I have some money as well. Would like to come on to the bus, come in 2 months, or bus would leave. Is that the way to discuss? I think that manner, I don't think we would like to see the next bus coming and say, we're going to have a regional security issue system. If you want to come on to the bus, you should decide yourself in 2 months. This is the reason that I was a little concerned about the European attitude. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to have spoken too long. I'm a moderator and I should not have spoken, but I wanted to express myself. Thanks.
Well, I'm afraid I didn't understand your question. Would you repeat your question?
From how I understand it, I think I still have a naive understanding of probably global diplomacy and geopolitics. And right now, most of the speakers are saying there's a need to pressure China. But I was wondering long term why it's naive to think China cannot become an ally, a legitimate ally to Japan and the U.S.
China as it is.
Or long term, or why is it naive to think?
Under its political system?
Exactly, yes.
Under this political system. Is this the...
Yes,
so we have to define the issue. Because you're a civil engineer and you know how to define the issue. So I just wanted to know, what China are you talking about? In how long as well?
I'm not exactly. This is why I understand my question is naive. So I was hoping. Yeah, I was hoping maybe there's one issue that you.
I was a little too diplomatic. I'm sorry.
I was wondering why this question is naive in the first place. What is it that is presenting or preventing? So as Ambassador Fujisaki said, it's their procedural problems do not fit the diplomatic regime. I understand was his answer. Do you sense a particular obstacle as to why China it's a long way to go for China to become a legitimate ally to U.S. Japan?
Well, I hope I understood you this time. The alliance is not just based on military consideration, but alliance can be made only when the allied countries, the countries concerned, have share basic values such as political values, human rights, democracy, etc. But frankly speaking, there is no such common sharing of values between Japan and China, for instance, or between the United States and China. So I don't exclude the possibility that in the long run, maybe after we have died, long time in the future, if China changes and if China becomes a democratic country which can share our basic values, then it could become a much closer friend or ally, if you like.
I don't deny what Ambassador Hayama has said, but talking about the interdependence of the economy, China is the biggest economic ally of Japan. 20% of the Japanese export goes to China, and including Taiwan and Hong Kong, 30% of the Japanese export goes to Greater China, while Japanese export to the United States is less than 15%. So that economic interdependence between China and Japan is great, and it is expanding. And I think Japanese leaders, particularly leaders of the business leaders, recognize this, interdependence between the two countries. Chinese economy is very essential to the Japanese business, and vice versa. And I think Chinese leaders recognize that as well. So that although there are some political hiccups every now and then, I don't worry too much about the China-Japanese relationship, as long as those economics of interdependence.
What else would you like to come in?
Yes,
You asked
thanks very much.
questions.
Yes, in addition of the value, I think the both countries have to emerge the national interest. China is just expanding their maritime territory close to the first island chain and second island chain. And that is not our interest. And in terms of anti-piracy or environment issues, and also economic growth or Syrian communication protection from Middle East, that is a little bit the concur with the Chinese national interest. But otherwise, I think our national interest and Chinese nationality is not merged.
Maybe Professor Kubo would like to come in.
Yeah, and I have to, I should add one or two things to what Mr. Oda said. China is trying to change the kind of the status quo by force, like in the East China Sea. I think China was pretty serious in 2012 in trying to take the Central Island by force. And China is now getting many islands by force, in South China Sea. China is engaging in construction, militarization, and the reclamation of in South China Sea, making fake islands and claiming vast area of territorial waters. So, as long as China is doing that kind of thing, that is against the national interest of Japan, especially in East China Sea. So, this is just one example. But, so as far as we have the serious difference in national interest, there's a long way for us to talk about the alliance with China. Though the situation is a little bit different from the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, because as Professor Sakakibara just said, there's an enormous degree of economic interdependence, while in politics, in foreign policies, or in terms of the national interest, we disagree so much. And this is the essence of the kind of the very complicated nature of Japan-China relations. And we need some help from the United States in defending or deterring some actions on the part of China.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
May I add?
Sorry.
Before answering all the welfare of those people, there are many strong and sometimes rich nations around the Pacific, and the ideal goal is to build some kind of cooperation, freer trade and less military spending and so forth. And that's the idea, but right now in trade as well as in diplomatic relations, the nature of the game is a prisoner's dilemma. You cannot trust the other. So if the other guy betrays, then you are sort of a peaceful attitude, less tariff or less military spending would be betrayed, and really the situation would be hard. So people are under suspicions and being afraid. The political scientist called by my age, Axelrod, developed computer game among specialists. What are the strategies that are the most, if it's played repeatedly, most fruitful? And the strategy was called tit for tat. First, you have to begin with trust, but as soon as the other party betray your trust, then you should have a trigger revenge strategy, so that formation of mutual alliance is not from just friendliness or something, or somebody's leadership, but some kind of interplay of conditioned threat strategy. That's called trigger strategies. And so in order to make a peace, as you said in your question, you cannot just listen to other parties' demand, but always have a strong resisting strategy. The reason, I think, of why, the reason that Mr. Reagan succeeded, or Nixon even, succeeded in creating mutual cooperation is very strange. They are supposed to be very hawkish, but Reagan, with the help of another hawkish lady, the Iron Lady, Thatcher, could negotiate some kind of peaceful coexistence between things, so that the evolution of cooperation is rather complex process, and of course not completely analyzed by this kind of rational theory, but I think many diplomats should learn about the sonshi in the modern times to understand this conflicting situations.
Thank you very much. I think there's a consensus that China is a very important partner for us economically and geographically as well. So one day we hope that China will become even more trustworthy partner for us in security and political means as well. Now there are 3 or 4 people, so let's make your points very short, and then we'll ask the panelists. So we'll ask first 3 or 4 people who are asking questions first, and then go on to the other people. Okay.
Okay, thank you all for the wonderful discussions. I'm Nobuhiro Morita. I currently work with Mitsubishi Corporation and trade in aluminum. So I have questions to Professor Hamada and Mr. Sakakibara regarding the decline of natural resource prices. I feel that we see a vicious cycle here where the price is declining, and that is hinging or discouraging nations from investing into developing nation that has on board natural resources. And now, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't help the developing nations develop or grow, and the price won't go up. So what can help this from happening? How can we get out of this vicious cycle? I'm hoping to hear something other than World War III.
Thank you very much. The next question.
Thank you very much for the discussion. My name is Ryutaro Kurihara. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Tokyo Graduate School of Public Policy. I have a question to Professor Kubo. You've stated the importance of persuading the ordinary people how Trump is a bit dangerous in a way. But but at the same time, you said the elite cannot look down on the ordinary people's views, implying that there is a notion of the elite kind of mocking the Trump's political policies. So what do you think are the concrete steps or the non-emotional rhetoric the elites should be using or the United States constituents should be using at the time to persuade.
Thank you very much, Professor. You were asking? Yes.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Goshida.
Michael,
thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Goshida, working in a financial institution and investing in Japanese equity. My question is on the sustainability of U.S. economy from a social or maybe financial standpoint. And from the social standpoint, I'm pretty much interested in the election process going on, and there seems to be a very serious economic divide. So what do you think is the kind of impact for the U.S. economy? And also from the financial standpoint, I think that there seems to be another credit bubble going on, primarily in auto size. I think so-called subprime loans now account for 20% of the U.S. auto loans. So I appreciate if you can give me some kind of your thoughts on the sustainability
Thank you
of
very
this.
much. Is there any other question? No? Okay, then I will start from Kubo-san, and we'll go around, and I think those who have been asked should address those questions that has been asked, but the others would make his own comment. So from Kubo-san.
In the case of the Republican establishment or Republican elite, they have been kind of offering a kind of fake pledges like tax cut or deportation of illegal immigrants, or abortion, or abortion is a very serious issue, or school prayer, and the blue collar working class people are very religious. So if you offer that I would prohibit abortion from taking place, they would be attracted to these religious stuff. But at the end of the day, these voters are finding that eventually they got nothing, especially in terms of they are improving their real life, because their wages has not been going up these days since the end of 1999. 1990s, the median house income has been kind of going down. So I think this is kind of the example of the failure of the elite, the Republican elite leadership. So probably the elite has to do is to kind of while upholding its principles like equality to all races, or equality to all ethnic groups, or the kind of a freedom, democracy, or political correctness to some extent. But they probably have to deliver some real things, in terms of economic improvement. But at the same time, probably they have to offer some compromise, even in the area of illegal immigrants, or accepting refugees, in the case of Belgium or France or Germany. If you just stick to a very idealistic, things, ordinary people will be eventually disillusioned. So this is pretty difficult task, but that's why elite has to do what elite only elite can do. And I hope that these young people would eventually can bear the task of this difficult thing.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Yanai? You, yes. And Walter?
Yeah, I'd like to say that Mr. Trump's phenomenon is a very negative point, but I'd like to emphasize a very positive point. That is, this is a very good wake-up call of thinking about our national security, because we heavily rely on the United States on our security, and then stop thinking about the security and also the nuclear security as well. So this is a good time to discuss and group our thinking of our national security. Thank you.
Thank you. Komasu-san, would you like to have Sakura-san, please?
Yeah, this decline of the oil prices has started with the shale gas revolution in the United States. There was actually the energy revolution in the United States. That has sort of pushed down the price of oil. And this phenomenon is continuing. So the decline of the oil prices and decline of other natural resource prices, would probably continue. Of course, slow rate of growth of the world economy as a whole is another factor. However, this oil glut, and because of, shale gas sort of impact will continue.
Thank you very much, Professor Hamada.
This is called sometimes Dutch disease or some maybe Japanese is better. Kosaku bimbo. If you produce so much, then that is benefit for the whole universe. But who was producing natural resources will suffer quite a long time, I guess. And one thing, the last person was very pessimistic, but I think the US is simple, naive, and sometimes unsophisticated country, but they did a great job. They started with, I should say, sort of confrontation of races and so forth. Now, Mr. Obama is president. So they are trying to solve those problems by their own power, their own skill, and transition will create a lot of problems, but I don't find the US is in some critical jeopardy situation. One thing I couldn't understand why Mr. Mizuno influences Mr. Sakakiba. That is reminiscent of old Marxian thinking that the world will go to some hell. And my former student, lady student, is writing about negative interest rate, and I wanted to write some help book review, but she said wrongly the minus interest rate will create minus growth. But that's completely mistaken from modern economic policy. Minus growth rate may create minus interest rate. And Mr. Mizuno completely doesn't consider the deflation. It's what we call money illusion. He is under. So the world, we economists studied about macroeconomy and so forth around 300 years, and there are so many concrete and helpful wisdom, so that us speakers' pessimism is not at all warranted.
I think in Japanese we would say "kakyo ni haite kita." It's going to be the most interesting part of tonight's discussion, but I think we are coming to the end, so we cannot make that. But would you like to make a remark, Mr. Sakakibara, in the very end before we close, or
No. I don't necessarily refute what Professor Hamada said, but Mr. Mizuno's proposition is that we have sort of come into the stage of maturity, and rate of growth which has driven the capitalism is now coming close to zero, And that would probably be the end of what we have had, the modern capitalistic sort of system.
Thank you very much. I was just told by Mita-san that all of you are invited to a reception after this, so you can ask questions to any of the participants. But thank you very much, all the panelists and all the participants, for great statements, remarks, and questions and answers. So I think we had a very good discussion. Mr. Tuan, would you like to conclude the meeting?
You concluded already, so that's great conference. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your contribution attending, and we hope we continue to get together, not only by conference in person, but also by online, by email, and discussing more. Thank you so much.
皆様ありがとうございました。それでは、二次会、懇親会を用意しておりますので。